Good everyone, welcome back to our next edition of Econ Talks. Gareth, we've had some spending data come in for the silly season, bit more spending on Boxing Day. In fact, a 13%, I think it was, increase on Boxing Day spending 2024 compared to the year before. That's the biggest increase that we've seen going back, I think, nearly a decade. So pretty big lift coming through, which almost felt a bit surprising. The economy hadn't been that fantastic looking through, some of the numbers, but also I think interesting that when we've dug into those figures and what happened sort of in the lead up to Christmas as well, a few more trends start to emerge. Worldline spending showed that through the Worldline network there was positive growth in spending, more spending that happened in the first 7 days of December 2024 compared to the same first 7 days in December 2023. So sort of a good start. And then it seemed to slide downhill over time, that the sort of second and third week after that were a bit below where things were in 2023. So sort of good start, then came back. Now, importantly, that sort of start of December period came adjacent to the Black Friday sales, the Cyber Monday sales. And so you sort of had Cyber Monday, Black Friday, not looking too bad. Bit more of a pitch up at the start of December, sort of fell away as we got through there. There was a fall in the number of transactions that went through the tills, or peak transaction numbers on Christmas Eve. Still a lot of spending, don't get me wrong, but a bit more of a pullback. And then this big spike up on Boxing Day. And I think looking through all of that, what it suggests, and other data sort of backs us up, is that Kiwis probably were looking a bit more for discounts over that summer season. When you get to Christmas Eve, no one's giving you a discount. They know that you're desperate to buy your presents and you're sort of willing to pay whatever. But a bit more spending and activity happening at the start of the month, at the end of those sort of Black Friday sales, which often sort of go for a while, plus some pretty good deals on Boxing Day. I think I got sort of 40% off at some of the places I went to. Yes, I paid the tax of having to go through the hordes of people that were also trying to get deals, but interesting that, again, that sort of shift coming through. All in all, spending sort of had been feeling like it's trending in a slightly better direction, right? But maybe sort of it's not good, it's just better than low.
Yeah, when we look at the official data from Stats NZ around electronic card transactions, since July, it's trended up over the course of 4 months. I think monthly sales up by about 1.5%. That's the value of sales. It's not a huge lift, but it is trending up after we'd had sort of 15 to 16 months of continued drops since the sort of peak in activity in early 2023. So there are signs of certainly a levelling off, if not a turnaround in activity coming through. But I think you're right. Kiwis, we love bargains at the best of times, but when the budget's tight in terms of those high mortgage payments and, cost of living having risen, we are still pretty keen to try and hunt out those bargains at the moment. And that is reflected, I think, quite clearly in the sort of timing of some of those stronger growth numbers as opposed to the sort of weaker figures that have been coming through in other times as well. Also important to note, I think, when you look at that sort of longer term spending data over the last 6 months of last year, that the volume of activity still does seem to be tracking down. We don't have quite the same level of detail of data around that, and it may have started to pick up a little bit towards the end of the year. But generally speaking, it's not really it's still more a value of spending story than actual real underlying activity picking up. And so, mixed signals coming through, I think, in terms of just how consumers are feeling. We know that consumer confidence, yes, again, it's picked up again in the second half of last year, but it's still in negative territory, still quite a long way below its long-term average as well, and nowhere near as optimistic as the sort of business confidence numbers that we've been getting through from other surveys. So still quite a disparity or a divergence between how businesses are reporting how they're feeling and how consumers are going as well. So you take all of that together, and I think it's worthwhile just taking some of the sort of spending numbers with a bit of caution. Not to say that things aren't a little bit better, but it's certainly not a massive roaring away upturn at the moment. And maybe that's reflected in some of the sort of comments we've had from retailers around just how that Christmas season has gone. Noteworthy to see that even Briscoes, who've done very, very well, I think, through the last 12 to 18 months, were saying things just seem to be a little bit disappointing, a little bit soft as well.
And I think as well, part of that, right, is because, sure, spending, like you say, has lifted from the low point that it was. It's still below where it was a year ago, though. So it depends on what you want to compare to. Compared to sort of normal or a year ago, it's down. Compared to the worst point that it's been recently, it's slightly better. You do have to sort of keep all of that in mind. And I think that was reinforced. Worldline has also recently released spending figures for the entirety of 2024, which showed that spending growth did occur last year. It was up 0.8%. So that's growth. It was the slowest growth in 5 years. And if you look at where inflation has been as well, to your point around value versus volume, sure, we were paying more. We were getting less from it though, and I think that's probably the big challenge through is that yes, inflation has peaked and has now come down, but the level of inflation in the system relative to other indicators does suggest that people are having to be a little bit more cautious. Also interesting in that data was that although there was a 0.8% increase in spending over the 2024 year, there was, I think, a 0.6% decline in average transaction value, which does suggest that people have been either looking for more discounts and or also looking for effectively cheaper options. People are not going out and doing your sort of really high dollar value purchases because they don't have the money. They're not willing to make some of those bigger spending commitments. Yep, they've got to buy the essentials, their supermarket shops and similar, but they're not going out to buy, big couches, big pieces of furniture or whiteware. They're not going to buy big electronics. They might be going out a bit more every now and then to buy, some more apparel or footwear or something. But it's often, again, that's sort of the smaller dollar value that you can start to afford a bit more of as your finances improve. But you're not going to go and make big spending commitments all of a sudden. You just don't have that much spare cash to drop. So I think that's sort of in keeping with that feeling of better, but not good. We're not good yet. We're not seeing healthy spending. We're just seeing not as bad spending as it was a couple of months ago. It is interesting, of course, interest rates are now coming down. That seems to be providing a bit more opportunity as we head forward for households this year and for retailers. But at the same time, you've also got those unemployment risks, the job sort of security risks that are coming through as well. So people, I think, will still be cautious until everyone has sort of almost more fully refixed onto a slightly lower rate, have a bit more money, and retailers will then be wanting to see a couple of months of better sales before they're starting to make better, stronger commitments in terms of other purchases, more hiring and what have you. So a bit of water to go under the bridge as well when it comes to retail activity, but maybe some small signs of better, but not good just yet. We'll continue to assess how all of that goes, what spending activity trends we start to see emerge in 2025, and how quickly any of that turnaround might tick even stronger on one of our future editions of Econ Talks.